Alrighty guys, hi, it's your boy Cisco here again. Welcome to another episode of the Code 3 Club. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Ian Pruitt. 30 years young, he would describe himself as
30, flirty and thriving. Or dirty 30, you know, all those 30 cliches, like I'll take whatever. But, just thanks for having me, Francisco. This is pretty awesome.
It's my pleasure.
Or AKA Cisco, to all you uninformed listeners out there. It's truly an honor to be here, and I really appreciate you kind of extending the invite, man. This is pretty cool. It's not an opportunity or kind of something I get to do often. Definitely kind of a unique type thing.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
I really want to have you because I feel like you have a very interesting life. And I kind of want to know how you ended up in this in the first place.
Yeah.
So, we've known each other for over a year now.
Yeah, about a year.
But, we don't necessarily work together all the time. We don't get to hang out. So we don't know each other too well.
Yeah.
But through the grapevine, I've heard you've been outside of the United States. You've done some traveling. You've had some interesting jobs.
Totally.
I know that for those who don't know, we're currently in California on the West Coast.
Yep.
I hear you spent some time on the East Coast.
That's true.
Okay. So right now, you're a firefighter paramedic.
Yep.
In the Southern California region.
Yep.
I imagine you love your job.
Yeah. So all of those things are true. I don't think of my life as all that special or unique, but sometimes people have different experiences, different backgrounds, and they hear my story or stuff that I've done. They're like, whoa, that's pretty crazy, or that's different, things like that. So my life has been kind of made up of a lot of different passions and following different pursuits and things like that. So it's kind of led me in a lot of different types of jobs and different places. I've interacted with a lot of different people and gotten to experience a lot of really cool things. So yeah, I'll kind of give you like a brief background, and if there's something that, you feel is particularly interesting, feel free to interject, ask questions, whatever, or we can go down a rabbit hole. And like you said, my name's Ian, 30 years old, born and raised San Clemente, California. Still live there now. Lived a few different places, but grew up in San Clemente, was born there, spent all my childhood there, ended up moving and then kind of coming back, falling in love with my wife, settling down there, and now raising a family there. If you were to ask me, maybe 10 years ago, if I would ever see myself living in San Clemente again, I would have been like, I wish, but also kind of like, absolutely not. It's a really, really cool beach town in Southern California. Great surfing. I grew up at the beach. Great place to kind of be a kid, be part of a family, but maybe as a young person, not necessarily a ton of opportunities, in terms of work, nightlife, kind of going out, girl prospects, things like that. So it's just crazy how life kind of, leads you down these different paths. And then, now I'm raising my own family there. So it's cool that it worked out that way. But yeah, so I work as a Firefighter 2 paramedic for CAL FIRE in Riverside County. Currently been on the job for about a year. And I will say a disclaimer to, all the listeners out there. My opinions and, the opinions of this podcast in no way reflect any particular state, county, federal, any agency, right? This is just Ian Pruitt and kind of, my life experiences.
Were you like a lawyer?
I know, right? It sounds like that, huh? Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So anybody listening to this podcast, don't sue me. Don't come after me, nothing but positive things about any place that I've worked or, anybody that I've worked with. For the most part, I've been very fortunate. But yeah, I work as a firefighter paramedic. I'm pretty brand new. So if anybody's out there hustling to get that job, I was there not too long ago. I've been hustling and working really hard in my life to get to where I am right now. And there is a light, things do pay off. And I'm sure, Cisco, you've heard, when you're trying to get jobs or get hired with fire departments or with EMS agencies, they say like it never rains but it pours. So sometimes it's like it feels like this drought, there's no rain coming your way, and then all of a sudden you get all these different offers or opportunities.
Yep.
And departments hitting you up and things start to click, and it takes a while. I'm not that person that knew that I wanted to be in EMS or be in the fire service. When I graduated high school, I played water polo, swam, so I was recruited to play water polo. I played water polo in college. I went to Fordham University in New York, Division I water polo program. That being said, we were not quite as good as the West Coast schools. So East Coast water polo is kind of it's not as competitive. We had a super strong team and, really, really great players and, got to play some really good teams, but a little less kind of intense compared to some of the big West Coast programs, like USC, UCLA, Stanford, stuff like that.
Why do you think that is? Is that like just a culture?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a cultural thing. Water polo is definitely like a big West Coast sport. It might have to do with the weather. It's like outdoor pools, nice weather, people swim. I don't know. It's definitely growing on the East Coast. There's some pretty good programs, all over, not just on the East Coast and Midwest. The Southeast, like Florida's got some killer programs, killer teams. But just for whatever reason, I think historically, a lot of the West Coast, at least at the kind of the college level, those teams have been really good, and so they've just had these almost like dynasty type programs, and that's where the good players want to go because they've always been good and they're good. It's like. It's the same, I'm sure, with football, right? Like Alabama's always good, so people that are good want to go there because they're good, kind of something like that. So yeah, so I went to college. I studied environmental policy, which is kind of like political science for the environment. And my thought was that maybe I wanted to actually be an attorney. It's funny you say that, I have an uncle who's a lawyer, and it's just a career that kind of intrigued me. Studying the law, reading. It was a relatively new major at my school. For those of you guys who don't really understand what environmental policy is, it's kind of like there's a lot of environmental laws out there. You think of like the EPA, you think of just the environment in general. There's laws that regulate it and kind of govern it. And you can go a lot of different ways with it. You can, like I said, be an environmental lawyer. You can go into business that focuses on, environmental or sustainable products, things like that. Green design, green marketing, like there's a lot of things. And I saw the value in that. I thought if I wanted to go into business, so my focus was on sustainable business eventually. So I kind of shifted from having aspirations of going to law school and doing that to being like, oh, maybe I want to do like environmental business. A big part of it was we call it the triple bottom line of business, which is like the 3 Ps, something that's profitable, but it's also good for people and good for the planet. So this idea of a business being sustainable, right? It has longevity. It's not just going to crash and burn. You're going to continue to have growth, continue to kind of have successes in your business. That was just something that intrigued me and was interesting to me. And so I tried to pursue it. And yeah, I spent 4 years in New York City. I lived in the Bronx.
Hey.
Which was definitely an experience, and I'm sure you've overheard some stories of me talking about that. I lived in the Bronx, for 3 out of those 4 years. It's a different world over there, man. It's crazy. I don't know kind of how to describe it. It's just the urban jungle. I mean, you can see anything and everything walking down the street. Just a vibrant community. A ton of characters. Where I was at wasn't the worst part of the Bronx in terms of crime or kind of what you think of as really bad neighborhood, but it wasn't good. It was definitely the type of place where when you walk down the street, you don't make eye contact with people. You kind of keep your head down, mind your own business. Definitely saw some sketchy stuff. A lot of fights, heard a lot of gunshots, saw a lot of people get really messed up. So it was for me, I was 17 years old. I moved to New York City, coming from a small beach town in Southern Orange County, moving to Bronx, New York. It was very eye-opening cultural experience, but super blessed to have had it. It gave me a ton of kind of just perspective and light into the world. The East Coast has a different style. New York City in general has a different style of doing things. There's an energy involved with being in a dense kind of fast-paced, city like that. So it was a special time.
I've gone twice to New York. Never really spent a lot of time there. It was fast-paced, so I didn't. Pizza was good.
Amazing. It's the best. Let's get real.
There was chicken and rice on every corner.
Yeah. The food there. I mean, just food in general. New York City. When I lived there, I used to hear that New York City has 10,000 restaurants. I mean, that's there's food I've never even heard of. You want Egyptian food at 3 a.m? There you go. It's there, Yeah, so I dug it, man. I never had living in the Bronx was a little different. It's still technically in New York City, but it's not your buddy lives in Wall Street. That's the grind, right? Those are the guys that are there living in skyscrapers, and it's a different grind. It was cool where I was at because we were a little bit, removed from that, but we had easy access. So, you could get downtown Manhattan in 20 minutes. Where I was at was still urban jungle, but it was a lot more low income and kind of it wasn't people don't necessarily go to the Bronx to sightsee unless they're going to Yankee Stadium or the zoo.
Did you choose to stay there, or was it what the school paid for? How did you?
So I lived in the dorms my freshman year, and then I moved off campus sophomore, junior, senior year because it was cheaper.
Really?
Cheaper than living in the dorms, yeah. So yeah, we got we rented a house, me and some friends that I played water polo with.
So I know you mentioned stories. I don't think I've heard many of your stories about New York, but I remember you were telling us something about a fire.
Oh yeah. So I mean, that's kind of, so obviously FDNY, right? It's kind of like, it's when people think of the fire department or kind of like in the United States, like FDNY comes to mind, right? They're kind of like yeah, exactly. They're kind of like the big dogs, so to speak. They have the old construction. They have the whatever it is, like 9 million people that live in New York City. Like, you think of 9/11, like you just think of like all these like, heroic stories, like just badass fire department, badass dudes and men and women. I'm, not dudes. I say that just, it's my Southern California slang or whatever, but yeah, hecka. I got to witness a couple legit structure fires. This is before I knew anything about firefighting. I will say my dad is a retired firefighter. He retired from fire service maybe like 11 years ago. And part of me never wanting to be a firefighter was because he was a firefighter. I kind of almost went in the opposite direction. I was like, screw you, Dad. I want to do this on my own. I want to do what I want to do. And we can talk about that later. But I knew a little bit about the fire department just because, growing up, my dad was involved in it. But I didn't know anything like actually about it. I just knew about like visiting him on Thanksgiving or, things like that.
It was his job. It
was his job, yeah. And I didn't know any like technical aspects of it. I didn't know. I know they put out fires, but I don't know like what a fire even entails, right? Like I've never even seen a fire, I don't think. Living in the Bronx, man, I would see fires there like legit structure fires. I'd say like probably once a month. In our general neighborhood, one stands out in particular. We had like a low income kind of like tenement style house, building next to us. It was between 4 and 6 stories, probably like about 50 units in it. And my roommate woke me up one night. And she's like, hey, we got to get out. There's a fire next to us. And it was no joke, man. We went to like this back deck that we had. And, the story I was telling was there's these FDNY firefighters climbing up the fire escape. And there was like windows exploding out, massive amounts of flames. It was an intense experience. And it definitely stuck with me. It was like that visceral experience where you see firsthand, like, wow, these guys are brave. I know we like say like, oh, it's like part of our culture, like firefighters, those guys are legit, they're brave, they're heroes. But like seeing it like that, like it's like, wow, that's gnarly. It was like, it was right there. I was probably 10, 15 feet away, just windows exploding, just guys getting after it, putting in work. So it was pretty cool. Still had no intentions of ever joining the fire service, going EMS. It would be in between high school senior year and freshman year of college, I tried out and became an ocean lifeguard. So swimming, playing water polo, living at the beach, like becoming a lifeguard is kind of like
second nature.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people do it. It's like it's not like I don't know. I don't want to say it's not a big deal because it was a big deal, but it was like so many of my friends already did it and had done it. It was just kind of like, oh, it's a great job. Let's roll with it,
Yeah, if you're already swimming for fun, helping your friends out.
Yeah, 100%. It was a great summer job. The way I saw it, it's like I'm going to college. It works out perfect. Our peak summer months are like the time I have off. I can make a ton of money, work at the beach. I'm in the environment, swimming, surfing, making rescues. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
So you got to.
Yeah. So I tried out, became a lifeguard in 2008. So I've been doing it for about 13 years. And I've, had the opportunity to work for California State Parks in San Clemente, Doheny, and San Onofre. I had the opportunity in 2013. I got hired with LA County as an ocean lifeguard, and got to work in like Venice and Santa Monica. I'm still
on the boat,
still lifeguarding. Yeah, still hanging on there. Kind of with our schedule and being busy and training. And I have 2 kids now. It's definitely something that's kind of taken a little bit of a back seat. But for more or less 10 years of my life, it was like that's what I did. It was a major part of my identity and. It was kind of that first little taste in a career of public service. Lifeguards, they're part of, it's a public service. They make rescues. They do basic first aid, typically on the beach. They're kind of that first line of defense, like that first responder, if you will. A lot of people that start off as ocean lifeguards kind of do it seasonally and, do it as like a fun summer job. We always joke around, you get a real job. That's not to say there's a ton of professional lifeguards out there that work year round and that's their career. And, I'm envious of you guys. Like they have, in my opinion, one of the dream jobs, especially if, they're sitting in a tower and on a beach, kind of like making good money, good retirement, good benefits. Like, I don't know what could be better,
So I've been obviously to some of the beaches in LA County, Orange County. And you mentioned the towers. Mm-hmm. You guys have boats too.
We do, yeah.
So is that like an alternating thing, or do you only stay on the tower?
In Southern California, it kind of depends on where you're at in terms of like who the local jurisdiction is. Working for the state, we do state park beaches. In Orange County, a lot of the local cities have their own like marine safety departments or lifeguard departments that are affiliated with the fire departments. Mm-hmm. In LA County, the County of Los Angeles, through the fire department and their lifeguard division, does all the lifeguard service for all of LA County. So it's a pretty, it's a big department compared to some of these littler city departments that exist like in Orange County or San Diego County. So it just kind of depends on, what the local city has in terms of resources. Kind of, if you were to make a comparison, having a rescue boat is almost like having like a fire truck in a fire department. Not necessarily
mandatory.
Yeah, not necessarily every city has one because, it's expensive and, let's say you're a small city fire department with only one station. Maybe it would be more cost effective to do it as like a regional resource or like to share the expense with another city, something like that. But yeah, the rescue boats are, definitely a helpful tool. I had the opportunity last summer to actually work on a rescue boat, surf watch, out of Dana Point Harbor and patrol like San Clemente, San Onofre, and Doheny. And for me, that was a totally new experience in the 13 years or 12 years at that time that I've been lifeguarding, and I enjoyed every second of it. Totally different, from watching the water from the beach. We were kind of watching, swimmers and surfers from a water perspective, like a platform on the water, backing up rescues, assisting with boats in distress, boat tows, responding to medical aids on the water. So just a different type of job, but very, very fun.
When you were on the towers, did you actually like get to go run out and save somebody?
Oh, all the time. It's one of those things where it's like lifeguarding is very dependent on environmental conditions. When people get into, somebody can go in the water and drown no matter what, even if it's flat, right? You could be in a pool and somebody's going to drown. They don't know how to swim. They're not wearing the proper swimwear, things like that. With the ocean, it's a little different. It's, you have waves, you have currents, you have rip currents. You have all these kind of factors that make the ocean more or less dangerous. So it just kind of depends. In lifeguarding, a lot of it just kind of has to do with all of these things kind of coming together to more or less kind of create a perfect environment for dangerous swimming conditions. A lot of it has to do with how big the waves are, what direction the swell is coming from, what the sand topography on the beach is like. Is it going to form?
Topography.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting all technical, right?
Professional here.
Yes, very much so. But yeah, just how the sand is laid out on the beach can affect how, when waves break, the water comes in, then it has to flow back out. So a common thing that we experience in lifeguarding is rip currents. So how that water is being sucked back out into the ocean. Because you figure a beach or a wave crashes up on the beach, it doesn't just stay there; it has to go back out. The tide is a factor as well. Whether the tide is going high or going low, what the weather is doing. Is it a nice day or are there a lot of people out? Is the water warm? Are people hanging out in the water, swimming in the water because the water's so warm? All of these things kind of come together. Is it a Saturday and a Sunday versus a midweek Tuesday or something? Just a lot of these elements kind of, make for a busy day or a slow day. There's plenty of days I've gone to the beach to work a lifeguard shift and, never had to make a rescue. There's plenty of days where I've made 15, 20 rescues in a day.
Jesus.
And that's not to say every single person that I'm rescuing is drowning. We do a lot of what we call preventative lifeguarding. So just moving people around or, kind of swimming out to educate them before they get into like true danger. Especially when I'm working in LA County, we're dealing with so many people coming to the beach. We're talking about thousands, tens of thousands, probably even hundreds of thousands of people like at Santa Monica on a busy summer day. We don't have the lifeguard resources to rescue every single person if there's, big swell, strong rip currents. So we try to do our best to move people out of dangerous situations before it becomes too dangerous.
So normally I would like, for EMS stuff, I would ask you like, oh, what's a cool call or incident?
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to ask you about people drowning.
I know. Every lifeguard's worst nightmare is having to respond to like what we call a missing swimmer. I've been a part of a few in my career, and it's the worst. I know working as a paramedic, we respond to all sorts of traumatic injuries and people who are dead on arrival or people who are circling the drain very close to dying. Lifeguarding is kind of different in the sense that, we don't typically deal with a lot of sick people at the beach. Most of the people that are going to the beach are typically very healthy. They're there to, have fun, to recreate, to spend time with their family, to more or less just enjoy life. The beaches, I always say it's like a big park. People go there to have fun. So when bad stuff happens at the beach, it's not as common, especially in like EMS type situations, but especially with missing swimmers, confirmed missing swimmers. Because you figure if you're working as a lifeguard at the beach, like your job is to watch people swimming. It's almost like a personal thing. If, somebody is missing in your water or is unaccounted for in your water.
It's like you feel like you let them down.
100%. I thankfully, knock on wood, I've never personally had that happen to me. I've assisted with missing swimmers and other parts of the beach. It's almost like motivation for me to do a good job. It's very it's different in that way. It's when I'm at the fire station and working on the ambulance, it's like, we're spending time training, eating, just living at the fire station, and then we get the call, then we go respond. Lifeguarding is different in that you're always watching, so you're kind of always on. You're never reacting to things, you're being like proactive to things.
See, I didn't know that. Like, so I love going to the beach, but I'm not the best swimmer.
Yeah.
So I don't swim in the ocean. I swim in the pool.
Okay.
So I don't really see the education you're talking about, the preventative.
So many people, go to the beach and they have, no idea kind of what's going on. The lifeguard towers are typically a little bit further back on the sand. They're kind of just overlooking the beach. And, I'd say 90% of the people at the beach have no idea what the lifeguards are even doing. They're in their own world. They're building sandcastles with their kids. They're enjoying life, right? Like I said, they're spending time at the park. And that's another different part about it too, is like people don't know they're in danger because they have this idea of, self-confidence or whatever until it's too late. And then that's hopefully when the lifeguard is intervening or, there to help them out. We don't like things to get a little bit too uncomfortable. We like to grab them, before they're going underwater or before they're in too much danger.
I would have no clue. I would think to myself, okay, rip current.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
dangerous from bad.
You're not alone. I'd say, the majority of the public who goes to the beach, they don't truly realize the power of the ocean. I feel so fortunate that I've, kind of grown up swimming, working as a lifeguard. It's given me so much insight to just the ocean in general, how powerful of an entity it is. How humbling it can be swimming in the ocean. People underestimate, just because the waves are kind of small, they underestimate it, and the ocean will win 100% of the time. So you have to, you have to be very careful. And we see a lot of people, it's just, maybe they think they can swim in a pool and then they try to go swim in the ocean, and it's different. Like I said, there's waves, it's a different beast, man. Or they're swimming in jeans and a hoodie, which is probably not a good idea.
Just not comfortable.
Yeah, definitely not.
So, other than drowning, because it's a very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Like what? And then I know you said there's not so much EMS stuff going on.
Yeah.
But like, what medical emergencies do you feel you come across?
Yeah, there is a decent amount. It's not as frequent. I'd say that bread and butter of what we see in terms of EMS at the beach are going to be a lot of like laceration type things. People cut themselves on whatever, underwater rocks. They cut themselves on surfboard fins, cut themselves on, fishing hooks when they're fishing, like things like that. That's a fairly common beach-related injury. Unfortunately, we deal with a lot of C-spines and sometimes some pretty legitimate like spinal injuries for people going over the falls. So like they'll be on the wave and it'll slam them into the sandbar on the bottom. So you figure there's a significant amount of power in a wave. Sometimes they could be falling onto a sandbar from 6 feet and then a good amount of force, kind of in some awkward angles. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, I've seen some pretty significant spinal cord injuries in the ocean, and sometimes extrication can be a difficult part of that because you're dealing with a patient in the water. So you need a significant amount of resources to come. Let's say they have a spinal cord injury, they're in the water, they're floating. Hopefully they're floating face up, right? So they have a patent airway and, they're able to kind of have some sort of oxygen exchange on. But then you want to maintain that. You figure there's still going to be waves coming in so that they're not getting swamped. You want to control your patient in the water. Try to keep that spinal cord immobilized as best as possible. And we have some different techniques that we use as lifeguards in the water. And then you need to move them from the water to the sand, where hopefully your equipment is kind of staged and ready. It's a little different in terms of like your extrication techniques. It's a lot of communicating with your teammates. And then you're just dealing with, the environmental issues. Your patient's going to be soaking wet. You're going to be soaking wet. Putting on gloves when you're soaking wet. Then you transfer them to the sand. Now they're wet and sandy. It's sunny outside, so they're getting blinded in their eyes. And just some things you don't necessarily think about.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, running EMS calls like in a skilled nursing facility that you might not have to deal with, So we deal with that. A lot of the beaches I work at have bike paths. So we have a lot of like bike crashes. So yeah, people are just, accidents happen, right? They crash into other bikers, they crash into walls, they fall off their bikes, crash into parked cars, crash into cars that are driving. We deal with a lot of stingrays. That's very common. Stingrays live in the ocean. It's always a funny one. We always, you kind of laugh. Another knock on wood, have never been stung by a stingray. People say it's one of the most painful things to happen to them ever. We'll have female patients who have been stung by a stingray compare it to childbirth, like in terms of excruciating pain levels. It's very short-lived and it's very easily treatable. But during let's say the 45 minutes to 2 hours that they're experiencing those types of pains,
horrible,
excruciating pain. It releases a protein neurotoxin into your skin, and it's consistently 10 out of 10 on the pain scale. Our treatment is literally soaking it in hot water.
No pee, no vinegar.
No pee. That's a common urban legend. If you're on a desert island and you don't have any other option, warm urine, I suppose, would be effective. But just as hot as we tell people, as hot as water as they can tolerate.
Some people just want to pee on other people.
Maybe. Yeah, it's just they're trying to live out one of their weird fantasies. Yeah. I'd say, for listeners out there, maybe we have some young listeners who are, in high school or part of their high school swim team, or maybe they're not swimmers. Lifeguards aren't exclusively swimmers or water polo players. Some of the best lifeguards I've ever known were runners or played soccer or just did a myriad of things. I will say lifeguarding for me was a pretty good stepping stone type job in that it kind of, no pun intended, got my feet wet in, I know, it got my feet wet, so to speak, in public service. It is truly a public service. You're serving your fellow community and, keeping them safe while they're at the beach. I will say it got my feet wet in terms of EMS. Mm-hmm. When I first started off, I was EMR, which is Emergency Medical Responder. Mm-hmm. So I think, some of the equivalents nowadays would just be like first responder, public safety first aid, something along those lines.
They still have EMR.
Do they? Okay, so there you go.
It's like a CPR class.
Yeah, it's we got our AHA CPR cards, and then some kind of basic first aid, doing C-spine, giving oxygen, things like that. And it just kind of, it led me down that path. Like a lot of lifeguards end up getting their EMT licenses because it increases your scope of practice, your understanding. You're just going to feel more comfortable, running medical aids. I will say, in addition to that too, if anybody's thinking about being a lifeguard, one really important skill that I think it developed in me, that it's stayed with me this entire time, is my ability to do patient assessments. Because almost 100% of the time, lifeguards are going to be those first responders on scene of an EMS call. Granted, we don't, necessarily that's not our bread and butter, mm-hmm. EMS calls or whatever. But like I said, 100% of the time, or near 100% of the time, we're going to be the first ones on scene doing that assessment and determining, do they need a higher level of care? Do we need to, activate medics in this situation? And do they need to go to the hospital?
Do you know if there's an incentive to go and get your EMT or paramedic?
It depends on the local department. I can't speak for every department. I know some departments do offer incentives, which, for me, it was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. You're going to pay me more money, let's roll. And it was just becoming an EMT for me it was pretty awesome. It was personal growth. It was something that, I cared enough about that I wanted to do a better job at it and just kind of have a better grasp on what it means to be an EMT. And I wanted to be better. I wanted to, if I was in those situations, I didn't want to not provide the best care possible. And I'm not saying, being an EMT is going to solve that, but for me, going from EMR to EMT was a huge step, and it definitely improved my overall kind of EMS skills and patient assessments and just understanding comfortability, like all of these factors.
Yeah, so you can only provide a service as good as what you were taught
100%.
And what you train in.
Totally.
Right? It's like after you become a paramedic and you learn certain things and you think back, when I was an EMT, didn't know that, wouldn't have treated that.
Yeah.
Didn't think twice. And
exactly.
Like, whoa.
That's a really, really good point. It's kind of like, what do they say? It's like, you don't know what you don't know kind of type thing, right?
Story of my life.
Yeah. Lifeguarding, it afforded me a tremendous amount of opportunities. So kind of, tying it back into that, after I graduated college, I moved to, I wanted to go from literally the biggest city in the United States to small town, so I moved to Montana. Yeah, a little plot twist.
Oh. I was expecting you to say back to St. Clement.
No, so I moved to Big Sky, Montana. And I spent the next 4 years, I did seasonal work. So I spent my first winter working at a ski resort, working as a lift operator. So the guy who, presses the buttons for the chairlifts at ski resorts. And then I spent the next 3 winters after that working at Mammoth in California as a ski instructor. So I taught skiing and snowboarding. So I did that for about 4.5 years. And then lifeguarded during the summer. So I kind of had like this whole, vagabond. I literally lived in the back of my truck when I was lifeguarding. So, super, I was making great money. I had no rent. I would just, shop frugally and, save my money and then travel in the shoulder seasons. So like in between winter when I was kind of working in the mountains and then summer when I was lifeguarding a lot, and just loved it. It was very, very much about myself. It was very selfish in the sense that that season of my life, I don't think I was necessarily working towards a goal. I wasn't dating anybody, wasn't raising a family, wasn't pursuing any higher knowledge. It's not until kind of the tail end of that I eventually, if I have to like think back, I was lifeguarding. This is like when I started becoming more passionate about pursuing an EMT. So kind of in the chronology, I guess, if you will, of my EMS career.
Chapters of your life.
I know, exactly. Yeah. Chapter 10. Yeah. So it was a very, very fun time in my life. So kind of tying it all together, I guess, and I met who would become my wife, Heather. Shout out to Heather. I think dating somebody and, kind of seeing a future in that, I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want my purpose to be? Like, what do I want as a career? I was starting to, get a little more concerned with, how am I going to pay bills? How am I going to retire? Like, how am I going to, just be able to afford things? Like, lifeguarding is good money. But it is seasonal work unless you kind of take it to that next step and, try to promote and become a permanent lifeguard or a year-round lifeguard. I'd entertained that thought. Part of working towards that goal was obtaining some additional kind of training, experience, skills, things like that. Kind of during that time, I also started really actively becoming interested in becoming a firefighter. I'd seen, the kind of experience that it afforded my dad. He was gone a lot, but he was also home a lot. Mm-hmm. We were never rich, but, we lived pretty comfortably. He was able to provide for his family and, he was truly proud of what he did. I think he'd be the first to say too. And, I would already echo this only having, worked in the fire service on my own for a couple years, if you include some of my other experiences. But, you meet lifelong friends, you meet people that have similar interests that, you can relate to, that you kind of do life with. And you don't get that in every type of career. So another, key point for all our, listeners out there that are hustling and kind of entertaining the idea of, whether they want to get their EMT license or work on an ambulance or become a firefighter or whatever it may be. I worked on an ambulance, and those are some great memories and great friends like that, we continue to stay in touch and do life with, like I said. So all these things were attractive to me. And, I eventually kind of dove headfirst into the pursuit. It's taken me a long time. I thought naively with a college degree, experience playing sports, experience lifeguarding, that, I was going to get hired somewhere pretty soon and pretty easily. I'm here to tell you guys that has not been the case for me, but it's only made me better. And for all those people out there that are, in similar types of positions or, kind of going through something similar, it's made me so much more resilient, so much more humble, so much more just appreciative of the process, and kind of just, I'm like savoring it so much more, because I truly feel like I've worked hard, and I don't want to say earned it, but I've worked towards it, and I feel respect for the everything that I have. So it's been a long time coming, and there's still so much more in front of me. It's still so brand new that I can't say like I have everything figured out, but it has been a tremendous just experience overall so far.
What do you have in mind for your fire career in the future? I know you're just
I'm brand new, man.
So, like, what are you?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, dude. Cisco, man. There's so many opportunities out there that it's hard, really, truly hard to pinpoint one down. I was given some good advice, and I don't know if you've heard anything similar, but it's good to have plans. Mm-hmm. Like a 1-year plan, 5-year plan, 20-year plan, 30-year plan, something along those lines. I'm very focused on my 1-year plan right now, which so far has been going pretty good. Specifically, I don't know. I think, I've had so many introductions into, specialties or kind of different opportunities that exist out there that I'm still kind of, trying to wrap my head around, what truly interests me. My dad did, I think, 18 years on a truck company. I've never had any experience working on a truck, but I've worked alongside truck companies, and I've seen kind of, the dedication that those men and women have to their craft and to their skills. And, it's pretty special. So I could definitely see myself maybe kind of going down that pathway. I was on a reserve hand crew for about 2.5 years, which, by no means is like, all this legit wildland experience. But even in my time doing that for 2.5 years, it's another kind of avenue that I definitely would like to pursue a little bit deeper in the future, 100%. And I think that's, part of the reason why I enjoyed it so much. It's very hard work, but it's very fulfilling. And it's increasingly as important as a job could be in the fire service, especially here in Southern California and California. Any people that I talk to is, I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of young lifeguards that are, maybe interested in becoming firefighters. And, I'd give them my perspective, and it's one of a million different perspectives. I always say, I think there's kind of 2 main avenues you can kind of go down. And you don't have to, but these are kind of, Ian Pruitt's 2 avenues that I think could lead to, if you wanted a job in the fire department, that could lead to that end goal. One of them is EMS, putting your time in, becoming an EMT, working on a box, becoming a paramedic. That's the avenue I went down. I know that's the avenue you went down, Cisco.
Yep.
So, respect. I think another avenue is wildland. Whether that's working for the feds on a hand crew or on an engine, whether that's working as a seasonal firefighter. I think those 2 are kind of, desirable traits for different reasons. So much of the fire department now is EMS. I mean, there's no debate, right? When you look at statistics of what fire departments do, it's largely EMS. But, with wildland and that type of experience, I think there's something to be said about the amount of fire, that you can get access to, the types of situations that you can kind of deal with. Not to mention, like, what we just talked about, the hard work and the work ethic and things like that. So, yeah, those are, yeah. I don't know what we were talking about, but yeah. Yeah.
So I just asked you what your goals were for the future, like the fire service, where you think you're going.
Yeah.
And before that, we were just talking about, like, you in Montana and tips for like firefighters,
sure,
lifeguards. I thought you were going to say you had like 4 years of experience as wildland in Montana. And I'm like,
I wish.
Jesus.
Yeah, during that season of my life, I think I was kind of a little naive and just, I was, like I said, I was kind of like this self-indulged season, more or less, in my life. I was focused on having fun and doing things for myself, selfishly. And I think there could have been some amazing opportunities that I, looking back, might have done differently. obviously everything works out for, a reason. And, my path is my path, and I'm super, super stoked. But, there's some, amazing opportunities up there with, wildland, and just, it's totally different. Big timber, and it's a pretty special place.
So, high school.
Yeah.
College in New York.
Yes.
So, I don't want to say small town because it's not a town, but so smaller city, Sacramento, right?
Yeah. Smaller city.
Big city.
Yeah.
Then super rural.
Yeah.
And then you met your wife.
Yes.
And then you started slowing down.
Yeah. And I that's kind of the, has been a big motivator for just kind of my, I guess my desire to have that career. My wife and I, were very kind of much on the same page with, we wanted to have a young family. I have 2 kids right now. I have a 4-month-old and a year and almost 2-year-old. So we, those were things that we valued, and just one thing led to another, and you kind of settle down, and, a lot of the kind of traveling and living different places, you can't really do that when you're, seriously dating somebody or getting engaged to somebody. So my wife, definitely had, a big influence on my life, and kind of, it's given me a lot of focus, and kind of, very singular type focus, which I think is important. So it's been good, and I love it. I don't know. It's just, it's a fun season, I guess.
So I'll come back to this.
Yeah.
But where else have you lived?
Yeah. So, I mentioned living in the back of my truck in LA. I lived in Big Sky, up in Montana. I lived in Mammoth, when I was working up there. I lived in New York City. I think that's it. I think, a couple conversations, we were talking about, done some traveling, had the opportunity to visit some pretty cool countries. I don't know. We were talking about Africa. So I had the opportunity to go to East Africa. Went with one of my good friends, Timothy, and we went to Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and he's my friend from Huntington Beach, and it was talk about one of those kind of once in a lifetime experiences. It's so funny, everybody, we got off the plane there, and everybody's like, wow, like, you guys are here to do missionary work and help out and like go to the whatever, and we're like, no, we're here to go on safari and check out animals and go on vacation. So it was very very much like a personal trip, and pretty fun. But we got to go on some game drives, and it's pretty funny, man. It's like we're on these game drives, and you're seeing animals out in the wild that you would see in the zoo. Now, lions and cheetahs and giraffes and elephants.
I would be so afraid.
Yeah, there was definitely an element of that. Like, we were in like this small kind of Japanese style van, like an off-road van. An elephant is like 4 times as big as the van we were in. Like, that thing would tear us to shreds. And these are like wild African elephants.
Well, like elephants are friendly, right?
I think you think that because you've seen, Dumbo, or I don't know, like,
I love Dumbo.
Tame elephants in the circus or something like that. But these elephants they're like darker, and just look wild. Big tusks, strong. It's like, I'm sure you've seen videos of like killer whales in the wild versus killer whales at SeaWorld.
Oh yeah, they'll both mess you up.
But there's a profound difference, right? Their fins are bent over, and they just don't have that same kind of that wild element. Same with these animals. I mean, we saw like a pride of lions like feasting, tearing apart these carcasses, and it's like, wow,
better than you. Yeah,
I would agree with that. So that was a pretty cool experience. Definitely got to travel around East Africa and kind of check out some sites there. Definitely, a lot of these themes in my life are just opportunities for perspective. And naturally, I'm a pretty curious guy, and I like learning and kind of checking things out. But it's also this chance for reflection, where you can kind of compare and contrast. And a really profound trip that I had somewhat recently, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, is I went to Haiti, which is one of the more poor countries in the Western Hemisphere. And the entire time I'm there, I'm like comparing and contrasting. I'm like, these people have absolutely nothing in terms of possessions. but there's still like this inherent happiness that they have in their lives, and like a sense of joy. And there's so many people that we know here in the United States that have plenty of everything. They're very, very fortunate with resources and money and time and energy and all these things, but yet there's still this unhappiness, or there's this kind of longing for more. So it's always cool to immerse yourself in different cultures and compare, contrast, and just kind of see, I guess, just what brings joy to people, or kind of I don't know, like just
makes you reconsider your first world problems.
Definitely, dude. It was a very good reality check, and I think opportunities like that, it's interesting. We on the Haiti trip, that was like a humanitarian type thing. We were there with a mission, like a church organization, and we were there to literally to feed people. And it's so funny because we discussed this at length while we were there and after, of course. But you go there to help them, but then they help you in some ways. By like what you just said, right? It gives you that kind of that reality check, that taste, matter of perspective. It was hard for me. My wife has been to Haiti quite a few times. I think like 15 times, something like that. She has that passion. She has that desire. For me, it was very difficult. It was very, very poor, very just scary and just uncomfortable in a lot of situations. But, I feel better for it. The small difference that I made was cool, but I also learned so much and kind of gave me so much. It was, you could say there was like a symbiotic relationship in a lot of ways.
Well, and even from like the first day I met you, I felt, and I could tell that you were just like a super wholesome, nice person.
Yeah.
You're always happy.
It depends on who you talk to.
You have great jokes.
Yeah.
I've seen and heard only of good things.
Yeah. Thank you.
You got a joke for me?
Yeah. What did 0 say to 8? Nice belt.
Ah, there you go.
Got him.
Ta-da.
Yeah. I think a lot of that comes from my time teaching kids skiing. Like I just had a bag of jokes, and all my jokes are like dad jokes, very clean. They have to be. I can't be like talking to an 8-year-old and like saying some dirty joke or something. I have to definitely be careful. But yeah, it's I feel so fortunate to be surrounded by people like you, Cisco. What do they say? Iron sharpens iron, and it's one cool. Anvil. Yeah, exactly. Be the anvil. It's one cool thing about being an EMS, working on an ambulance, working for an ambulance company, working for a fire department, whatever it may be, is you get to surround yourself with all these. I touched on this already. People that want to be there for the same reasons, but people that have unique interests and unique backgrounds. I mean, think about the conversations I've had with you. It's like, you're talking about this finance stuff and you got your own podcast. Like, I don't do any of that. To me, what you do is cool, So it's like, it's all this matter of perspective. And thanks so much for having me, man. This has been a treat. I feel like I've been talking the whole time, so it's weird.
You've made this real easy. You're
good.
I haven't had to ask very many questions. Great. I just think you're a super interesting person. I don't think we got to capture everything.
Oh yeah, we'll do a part 2
podcast for sure.
When I work in overtime with you or something, or
I've done that before.
Yeah.
don't.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You can edit that out. That's fine. But yeah, we can do a part 2, and if anybody else out there kind of wants to get in touch with me, they can find me on Instagram. They can email me. I'm sure they can hit you up through your podcast platform and get in touch with me. So. I'd be happy to take a phone call, text, whatever it may be. If anybody has questions, interests, they got some good dad jokes for me. Like, send them my way, man. I'm all about it.
I'll put them in the
link in the description, right?
Yeah, link in the description.
Subscribe below. Link in the description.
And then you can start look. If you have your phone on, you can look it up and you can give your own profile a shout out right now.
Sure.
Last question, because I know you get busy. Got the misses and the kiddos.
Yeah.
I just feel like for being 30. You have some great stories. We've only touched on a few.
Yeah.
But you have so much life experience.
Yes.
And then I've come across people of our similar age or even older that want to go into the fire service or want to go into EMS and they feel like they're too old, which I don't believe is a thing because I personally have met people that have gone into the our line of work in their late 40s.
100%.
And just listening to you and being like knowing where you're at right now,
Yeah.
I think every step of your life has been worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think you missed out.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Anything.
Yeah.
You're on great timing.
Yeah.
So I know you've already given some advice, some tidbits. But what else would you say for maybe someone? Because I felt that I got into it late. I didn't really start trying to do any firefighter stuff until I was like 23 or so. Didn't even get really serious until I was like 25.
Yeah.
And I've just been very fortunate ever since I decided to buckle down.
Sure.
Because it seems like many of the opportunities are when you're a young teenager, when you're 18.
Definitely.
It seems like if you're older than 20 years old, you just have a hard time getting those reserve positions, being those auxiliaries, just finding volunteer stuff. It's like you have to do your fire academy or you're limited. What would you say to those people?
That's a great question, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. I'm kind of similar to you. I got started a little bit later, right? It's not something I knew I wanted to do, 100% right away. I didn't get my EMT certificate until I was probably 26. I feel like EMT is kind of one of those very basic skills or kind of accreditations that you're going to need. I can't think of a fire department out there that doesn't require your EMT when you're applying. A lot of the entry-level fire departments, they're kind of, main things that they need. You need your EMT, you need to be 18, you need to have a valid California driver's license. A lot of the bigger fire departments, at least here in Southern California and in California in general, those are kind of like the three things. So, for folks that are a little bit older, you just need to be a little bit more strategic. You need to find a program that's going to work for you. I know I have 2 kids right now. I'm married. If I was in that situation right now, I probably wouldn't have the flexibility to do, certain things. You just want to be a little bit more strategic. You want to be a little more careful with your time and how you're doing it and the types of things that you're investing your time in. I would encourage anybody that is serious to get into fire service or EMS, find somebody that's done that path in front of you. Find a friend, a confidant, a mentor. They can kind of give you some tangible steps that are going to work for your specific, unique experience. I could sit on this podcast and tell you this, and this, but I think what it requires is somebody who is kind of, been through the process to come alongside you, analyze what you got going on, what your situation is, what your needs are, what your goal is, and then to kind of, develop a skeleton framework or like a roadmap that you can use. So, EMT is definitely going to be one of those entry-level basic things that I would encourage everybody to do. I never personally went to a fire academy. For me, it never worked out. Money was a big part of it. I was paying for everything on my own. I didn't have the flexibility in my schedule to A, take that time off work and not make money, or B, just pay for it in general. Becoming a paramedic for me was kind of, I guess I saw value in that, so that's something I pursued. I made stuff happen. I took out a loan. I made some sacrifices. My wife and I moved in with my grandma to kind of, to make things happen. This career, it will require some sacrifices. I would say for those, people that are a little bit older, just try to be a little more calculated and careful in those sacrifices or in those kind of decisions that you're going to be making.
Yeah, because it's unfortunate. Like if you do paramedic, you're guaranteed a job. No matter where you go, you're going to get a
totally.
job.
And that's
a fire academy.
Yeah,
not guaranteed.
There's no guarantees, man. And for me at that season in my life, it was just kind of like the paramedic school had an opening and the stars kind of aligned. I also got some good advice from somebody that has no idea of what the fire department is. One of my wife's friends was like, I was weighing these options of like, paramedic school is a lot of money. Should I do this? Should I move in with my grandma? Like, these are like scary things when I'm like, my wife was pregnant, I think, at that time. Think about yourself in 1 year and think about yourself right now. Do you want to be a year from now and have a paramedic license or close to a paramedic license or not? Like, where do you think you'll be in 1 year? And for me, that was kind of like, a very reassuring, question. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in, like, let's get after it. It all worked out for me. It was very, very tough season, but it can be done. Think of how many people out there have these jobs. Like, not everybody has this easy, lackadaisical path where they just get hired by the first fire department they've ever applied to. There are those people out there, but by and large, most people have, worked very, very hard at it. And they say the only people that don't get hired are the ones who give up. So, there's definitely an element that I would encourage everybody out there too is persistence. You got to get good at, taking rejection and accepting rejection. It sounds cliche, but use that as kind of fuel or as motivation to improve yourself. I always tried to come back. Let's say I got turned down or denied by a job or a department or something like that. I wanted to come back with more. So let's say, a department's hiring once a year, once every 2 years, try to come back with more each time and kind of use that as motivation and, get on a plan, Like I said, I think that's going to be the best thing is to get with somebody who's kind of been there, done that and ask for some sound advice.
That's great. I think I don't even know how to say it. I'm almost like in awe. I just think you're.
Oh my gosh!
You
Stop.
formulate everything so well, and you
Stop.
get a lot of nuggets. Of
Yeah.
good information, a lot of quotable saying.
Good. Well, I mean, for people like us, Cisco, like it's so fresh, and we've truly experienced it. So we have like a professional knowledge of applying and getting hired places because we've recently lived it. So. I truly, I feel like a subject matter expert. I'm like interviewing and trying to get jobs because it's been a big part of my life for the last 5 years.
I could tell. The tell me about yourself was really good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we'll wrap it up.
Cool.
Thank you so much again for being here, taking time away from your family.
Peace.
Do you know your Instagram handle for the shout out? You shout out yourself?
Yeah, we'll go through Cisco. I don't want to say it over the. Actually, dude, just type in Ian Pruitt, you'll find it. Thanks, Cisco, for having me. I just want to give a quick shout out to James and Parker at home. Love you guys. Peace.